Hi, welcome to Yellow's Talker Show. Today, I am doing a first on the show. I am venturing into Red Oak, and of
All
all
right.
things, I am venturing into one of a very contentious issue, something that's involving the community and the school district. Um, so I wanted to go ahead and bring on the yes on the bond measure for the bond measures for ROISD. Mr. Brian Bell, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. Go ahead and tell the guests a little bit about you.
Well, I am a dad, educator. I have two kids in Red Oak ISD schools. I was on the Citizens Planning Committee, which started last fall. And I filled out a form last spring, and they we get a lot of slack for this, but they picked 50 of us, and we joined on. And we kind of worked our way through the meetings. And as it went on, we kind of did the process, made decisions as a group. And then I was part of the group, the three people selected to be committee members or committee leaders. And then I got to go and present to the board of trustees the package that the Citizens Facility Planning Committee. So there's a lot of put together. Uh, and then uh, and then ever since then, I've been part of a group just trying to push to get people out and vote. I mean, it's just going to come down to in April if enough people that are yes or versus no, and who shows up to vote. It's where we're at now. We're not trying to change minds now because people made up their mind. I mean, we went last night and hardly anybody was at the information session for the district. So clearly, nobody needs information, facts. We need people to vote.
That's an interesting thing that you know people have made their mind or gotten polarized. I would hope that people would take it down to the issues and see and give it a good look.
Yeah.
Um, there are some concerns with it, but I want to get to what the bond does.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let you talk about overall what the bond does. I'm gonna pull up the Red Oak site while you're doing that.
Okay. I mean, first and foremost, the biggest part is Prop A. It alleviates overcrowding. I mean, we started it with the committee, and we started looking at the middle school. It's 152, 156, depends on which numbers you're looking at last fall or now. Capacity, and I mean, it's crowded. It's almost a running joke in Red Oak about how crowded it is, and kids can't get through hallways. And I had one parent tell me that it's changed her child. Like, she's a different person because she's very frustrated and intense in the middle school hallways. And so that's something that is just like, we got to get that fixed. So Prop A is overcrowding. It's also a new CTE. So the CTE now is over by the middle school. Yeah, they're going to pull up. And so kids are having to bus over there from the high school every day. And out of a 45-minute class, they're losing 22, 25 minutes. So it's affecting their ability to get their certificates. In some of the places, teachers are trying to help. They're opening the facility up in the evenings when they can to let these kids get their hours in. But these are hours they should be able to get in through the school year, through their class, and they can't because they're on the bus. There's some other things. The gym on the high school is a lot of people say that's extravagant and it's not necessary. Well, there's more programs. It's not just athletics. In the winter, when these kids can't go outside and practice, you've got ROTC, you have winter color guard. I went up to high school a few times in the winter. The color guard, they're having to move all the tables out of the cafeteria. And then they got to do their practice. And then they got to put all the tables back, which I know it's, the kids got to work, but we can provide these spaces for not a lot. So, we're trying to do that. There's some other things built into also the elementary schools. We're trying to alleviate some crowding at Wooden and East Ridge by converting the cafeterias, which the reason that we're going this route, or that is it was proposed to us, the best reason is because the cafeterias are surrounded by classrooms in those buildings, kind of the way the building was designed. And it really affects the teaching in those classrooms. So what they want to do is make a new cafeteria, new kitchen on the back, and turn the current cafeterias into classrooms. And that'll kind of help in a lot of different ways, but it'll also add class space. It'll make more room for those areas that are growing. So,
Um,
and I mean, that's generally Prop A. Prop A. There's some more in there, but
it sounds like they're doing a lot of things, but that's Prop A, and that's 156 million, and it
yes, sir.
has it works on playgrounds and EMS system upgrades.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that's the HVAC and the
Yeah,
power and
so right now only two of the schools, I believe. Now remember, this is information I got in December. I'm pretty sure, but two of the schools only are only centrally controlled HVAC systems, which saves a lot of money, saves a ton of money for the district. So they're wanting to upgrade all of the schools to the energy management system, just because over the long term we'll make our money back on that, according to my information that I learned.
yeah, I actually know about energy management systems,
Okay.
and they can save you quite a bit of money. They are
Okay.
expensive, but
Yeah.
they can save you a lot of money over the long term. So
Okay.
Prop B is Goodloe Stadium, rebuild
Yep.
a stadium and current codes and additional parking and seating, 8-lane track and LED field lighting, new restrooms, locker rooms, and concessions. Talk to me about that.
So the district sent out a survey last spring, and it's the same survey of how they built the committee. If you respond to the survey, I think it's over 2,000 people, which is more than voted in the last bond, by the way. Respond to the survey, 82% of those people said that they would support renovations at Goodloe to get it up to date. The question was somewhat generic, but what the committee discussed was it's not really ADA compatible. What's the term? Legal. It's really
Mhm.
not. Guests, and I don't know if a lot of people know this. On Friday nights for football, our guests who happen to be in a wheelchair or some kind of disability where they can't get into the stands, excuse me, because the parking lot on the guest side is so rough, they have to drive into the stadium, like right next to the track. They have to unload, and then their seats are on the track, field level. Not a great view, not a good situation to be in. Can be a safety issue as well. Plays don't go that far all the time, but I've seen it. So we're trying to all of those things that are on there, plus just get into code. We're trying to be up to code compliance. There could be some issues with the state as we go down the road as far as not being in compliance, and they shut us down, and then we don't have a football stadium. Then we're having to rent, from another town, or we're having to play our game somewhere else. So we're just trying to catch up on that. Somebody the other day said on good old Facebook, quit trying to be the Joneses, and my response is, we're not trying to be the Joneses. We're trying to not become the Flintstones. If you
Yeah.
go up there, everything's rocky, everything is uneven, all the surfaces. People who are in wheelchairs, they can't go to the regular restrooms. They got to go to these two special porta potties that are off to the side. And so we're really singling out people with disabilities, and we don't like that. We don't want to see that. We want everybody fair and equal. And so
Right.
that's kind of the thing with Goodloe. It's just outdated. It's just
So
outdated.
it's what you're saying is not only outdated and not practical for today's population, but it's also a hazard to disabled people.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they're the home. So a lot of our local people see the home side. The home side has been renovated more recently. It's not quite as bad. It does only have one ADA legal ramp that you got to go all the way to the end. But if you're trying to push somebody in a wheelchair from that ramp over to those porta potties, it's rocky and uneven, and it's just not ideal at all.
Uh, Talk to me about what is it? So that was prop. Which one did we just
That was
review? I'm
B.
sorry. That
Yes,
was
sir. That was
B. And
B.
prop C is the high school athletic improvements. A new JV stadium, track and turf field,
Yeah.
baseball, softball, artificial turf, and existing fields. Resurface existing tennis courts. Before we go into those,
Mhm.
um, what is the current situation of those? Do you know?
The current situation, well, the track, the JV stadium, there's nothing there. There's no track at the high school at all. So the high school kids have to come over to Goodloe, which is only 7 lanes, and they mix it up and practice with the middle school kids. So on any given day, you've got hundreds of kids out there, from ages 12 to 18, and then they're trying to run track, they're trying to practice track, and then at the same time you've got soccer on the field because that's the only field. They could be out there either practicing or getting ready for a game or warming up. So that's kind of the need there. Baseball and softball, the artificial turf, existing fields are grass and dirt and traditional baseball fields. Basically, it's a money saver, as it's been put to me. We've had trouble. I've talked to people in the district. So we have trouble keeping seed. We have trouble keeping grass. We're out towards the country, the wind's blowing, and we just have trouble. We have trouble maintaining those fields, kind of because of where we're at. Sometimes we get a lot of rain in the spring. Sometimes we get no rain in the spring. It's never perfect. So getting those up to date would be great. And then the tennis courts, I haven't personally been there. I don't know any tennis players, but I mean, they were
Me neither.
The only surface is back when the school was built, which is 10 years ago. So I mean, they're just worn out.
Okay. And then the Prop D, that's 19 million, and that goes into a transportation facility. So kind of give me a little rundown overview on that.
Well, that transportation facility was built in 2001. When back then, Red Oak was much smaller, only had about 20 buses, and hardly any maintenance fleet or white fleet or maintenance vehicles or anything. So it has 3 or 4 bay doors. But the main problem there is where it's at. I mean, it's not in a great location. They keep getting flooding. Any significant heavy rain we get, it floods. And the next morning, those guys should be working on or getting our vehicles back on the road, and they spend a half a day or a day getting the shop unflooded. You go in there's a tiny area there. Like I said, it was built for 20 buses, maybe 20 employees. And now we have over 60, to 80 employees. And that little room, they go in there in the mornings and they get their schedule, and they grab their stuff. There's nowhere for them. They're having to keep their stuff in their personal car, before, it's basically using their car like a locker. There's no space. There's just no space in there. It's flooding. We're working on buses in the parking lot, because we just don't have space inside the shop. So it's just a bigger space for our transportation partner to do what they need to do to make sure kids are getting to school.
That sounds like an expansion problem, definitely.
Yes,
and because it is growing, this place is growing, and like they were on the growth estimates, they talk about Red Oak ISD has not approved a bond in 15 years, and then the last bond was in 2007, and it was talking about the growth will top 7,100 by 2026. I'm sure everybody's seen the houses that have come up that just pop up. They build one per hour. They're coming up pretty fast. This place has gotten a lot more crowded from when I got here in 14, and so I could see that how the populations and stuff, how that is needed. But there's concerns. So in Texas, the property taxes are killer. Property taxes, and the biggest part of that property tax would be the schools. I mean, the schools are the biggest part of it. So with bonds, it's going to cost money. And so I'm going to ask you kind of a series of questions on this. So what does the budget look like right now I know that I don't expect you to have like complete numbers, but a better question. Why can't the district do this with regular funds?
Okay. So we get this question a lot, and it's hard to put out in verbally, but I mean, I'm sorry, in typing. There's several issues. And I've kind of been into this recently, but you can't, as a school district, you can't save money. Like, the state doesn't allow it, right? So if you have an abundance of money that you're gaining through your property taxes, the state still sets a number that that's your number per student that what you get. So if our property taxes go up, the state's just going to cut what they give us, and we're going to end up with the same amount. So this, you can't save. You can't, there's so many projects around. The district's done a great job of doing as many projects as they can with the source subject, the Live Oak money, and just out of their regular M&O budget. They've done all kinds of stuff, upgrading as much of the lighting systems at Shupman because they were on Hillco, and Hillco doesn't give discounted rates. So that lighting upgrade is saving us money. They've updated lighting at the high school, just all kinds of other projects where the district, is using their regular budget as much as they can to save us money and do what they can. But back to the state and why districts can't save. Districts, you can't save. If you have an overage, you see it all the time. And we're not there yet, but you see it in Midlothian, you see it in Plano, you see it now in Austin, especially. The state has what they call, what everyone calls the Robin Hood. If our properties get so valuable that we have an overage, the state will come and take it. So you can't save. Districts can't save. School bonds is the only way, the only thing we have to build facilities, multi-million-dollar facilities.
So what you're and I don't know budgets. I'm not an extensive school budget guy. So
I'm not either.
What you're telling me though is that the taxpayers' money they can't roll it over to the next year and roll it over and save and pay for this. And is that kind of what you're telling me?
I mean, I like you said, I'm with you. I'm not a budget guy I'm not into finance too deep. I read a lot about it. But basically, yes. So the INS portion, which is the bond portion, we can save. The state cannot touch that. And the district's done a great job with that. They saved up over $7 million and they just paid off this year in February a big chunk of those bonds from 2007. And so that will save us money and interest. And they plan on doing the same next year. There's a limit on how much they can pay and how early, but they're ready. They have it. But as far as the M&O side, it's almost year to year. I don't know for sure. I'm not going to say that the district doesn't have something. I think I've heard the districts have to keep a certain amount of cash on hand, in their
They do. I know that much.
So, but over that, I don't really know that, I mean, like I said, the more the local contributes, the more the state usually will come in and cut.
Okay.
Or not give as much.
And I know
they say you've got what you need.
And I know that's been an issue definitely in the past. Funding for schools in Texas can get quite interesting.
It's hard. I read about it all the time, and I still sometimes I'm lost. So
yeah, I made a venture into that, and I just went ahead and backed away and said I'll wait for the experts on that one.
Yeah.
So getting back to what we were talking about, taxes, that property taxes are real and they're affecting people, especially those with fixed incomes. And so when you start off in a house and your mortgage is, $900 and then a few years later, you're up to $1,500 because the taxes that keep going up. You're real cautious about what you're voting for, and especially voting on more debt. Absolutely. So how does that bond affect those property taxes that you know of?
So first off, I agree. I've been here 4.5 years, and I've seen mine, just like everyone else. I understand. I fought it once. They said I had a porch I didn't have, and I did good. But and I tell people, if it was anything but education, I'd be right there with the other side. Say, hey, we don't need all these taxes. We don't need this stuff. But this is education. This is our kids, our future. They push and say, I'm sorry, I'm going off on my side. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You are here to talk to.
We have this many kids economically disadvantaged. They can't afford the increase. I say they can't afford to not have the rest, have the increase, because the only way they get out of that is education. You're talking about kids that aren't going to go to private school. They're not going to go to Ovilla Christian. They're not going to go to Life. They're walking in the doors of these public schools, and we have to educate them. We have to give them room to grow and expand. So we can help them with just a little amount. And so that leads into what you were saying. We're talking about right now, if you're homesteaded, so if you have your homestead exemption, it's $1.18 per $100,000 of evaluation. And that's a month. Make sure. I was just reading this. Yeah. So that's a month, right? So like for a $300,000 house with a homestead, this is all on the bond site. But basically like I'll tell you my house. We redid my house last year, and I figured it up, and my total yearly at my evaluation of 311 minus the homestead is it's around $60. It's $60 a year.
A
And,
year?
and the reason it's actually not that much is because we haven't had a bond since 2007. And since then, we've been paying down our bond debt with our INS. And the growth has caused us to have that surplus, like that 7 million I was talking about a while ago. And the district pays these things off as early as they can. There is a limit. Can't pay off after, I think they have to wait 10 years or something. We'd have to talk to them about that. But the district has been really responsible in paying off as much as we can because we have that little overage because of the growth we're having. So
Okay.
it's the 231 million is a lot, right? That's a lot for Red Oak, Texas. But if you look at your individual contribution, we're talking about $60 to $70 for, and I think we don't know. I don't know any realtors that have told me this, but we're thinking the average home in Red Oak somewhere 300 to 350, maybe less, maybe more, a little bit. But generally, everybody's looking at $50 to $60 to $70 a year.
And the board members could do things to alleviate that going forward. I mean, they can make adjustments to the rate to which the school district is charging. That's always something that I talk with all the local candidates and some of our leaders in the school districts about taxes and how they charge taxes. And so there are ways, but it is a controversial issue because it is right now. I mean, money, you probably know, and I understand money. Everybody, I think on average, I think somebody did a study, and on average, it was something like, I want to say it was like $500 more a month. That was the average in the United States right now that people are paying. I mean, yeah, that's about right. And I'll tell you, it hurts. And so when they think about adding to that, it could be a very contentious subject.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you the floor to talk about it real quick and kind of give your spiel to the people of Red Oak and let them know why and and then close out.
Okay. I just wanted to also follow up about the tax question. Just to, make this clear, and I know it's out there, but if you're 65 or older and you have that homestead exemption filed, this rate can't change for you. Your taxes will not go up unless you have a significant improvement to your home in the future. I mean, and it's significant is the word. So, you let the legal system sort out significant, but and then to what you're saying about the increase in cost of living, I get it. I feel it. We feel it. My family feels it. We understand. I understand completely. Since COVID started and everything's been going crazy and people are out of work, I understand. But the thing is it's I hate to say the words, it's not that much, because it is. To some people, it is. $60 a year could, on a fixed budget, hurt people. And I understand that. But we've got to look at Red Oak as a whole. We've got to look at Red Oak as a community, and as the fact that so many people I've talked to have been here longer than me, and they agree. And I'm kind of asking them, is this like a make or break for Red Oak? And they're like, they've never felt more so than this vote. Yes, just because of where we're at. The stadium could be shut down. The middle school, if we don't alleviate the middle school crowding, the kids are going to be in portables for years. Not just temporary while we build a school 2 or 3 years. I mean, a long time. And that's, in the world we live in, is, hey, as much as we hate to say it, it's not safe. It's really not. It's not safe. It's not good for them. It's hard to learn when you're wet. It's hard to learn when you're cold. And so we're at a turning point for Red Oak where we have to make this decision. And it's just about who shows up. It is. You've got to show up. If you're in favor, show up. If you're against, show up. Speak your voice. When we were on the committee, we get a little chastised for how big this bond is, but the sentiment by the time we were done with it was, put it to the voters. The district needs all of these things that are in here. If you feel they don't need it, don't vote for that proposition. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's your right to vote how you see, but we need some stuff. So we need people voting yes, and otherwise, we're not looking good for Red Oak. You may not have to worry about your property values in 10 years if this doesn't pass. So
one thing that we know for sure is that people move to areas for the schools. They they definitely, families say, we're coming here because of schools. That's like always talked about. So it is important to keep things updated and things current. And but yeah, there are always two sides to this, and it has been a contentious issue online. So I wanted to kind of get people on here, stakeholders, talk about it, and kind of get that out to the people. And then you decide, folks, like Mr. Bell said, you go out there and you vote, whether yes or no, you go out and vote, because 200 people, 300 people, maybe 1,000 people, that's it, voting for your kids, to what your kids are going to have, or your property taxes, or how it affects you. 1,000 people to, controlling that is not right. Mr. Brian Bell, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, I went ahead and invited a guest that is going to speak on the no side of it in order to be balanced. I don't take any sides on this. I can't vote on it anyway. So I just wanted to make sure that you, the people of Red Oak, could hear both sides of this. So I have invited Miss Amy Hedke. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, Miss Hedke. I've kind of seen you on Facebook a little bit, rotating kind of those same circles here and there, and so it's good to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I wanted to have you on here, and the first thing I want to get out of the way is what is your stake here?
So I'm a mom. I used to live in Red Oak. I was on the Parks Board and the Library Board. I moved to Waxahachie. I still have 2 kids that are in the Red Oak school system. They were in Red Oak when we helped them kill the last school bond, and they're in the high school today. So yeah, I know the community. I've block walked this community. I've worked with this community. I know these people. And there's a lot of my friends and family that are going to be hit right in their homes with this tax increase. And I am going to help them as much as I can.
So you do have a kid in the school district?
2. Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes you a stakeholder, and that is why I invite you on here. So I wanted to keep it as clean as possible, because this is about the bonds. It's not a personal thing. So go ahead, and you want to walk through the bonds and kind of just talk about it a little bit?
Sure. You heard a lot of great ideas that Brian walked you through on the Red Oak website, but you guys didn't actually discuss the bond itself. The bond itself is the bond order. It's 4 paragraphs. That's it. This is what's being voted on. This is the legal contract. And unfortunately, and this is on the website, this is all on the website. So you've got 4 propositions that are basically one long sentence each. And they each ask 2 things. Shall the board do this, and shall the board do that? And the first thing that it asks is if the board shall issue bonds for improving, renovating, and equipping Goodloe Stadium. For, hang on, Prop A, constructing, acquiring, and equipping school buildings. That's it. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of projects, a lot of detail that's spelled out on the website, but none of that is legally binding. One of the problems that we've seen across Texas in lots of different districts is how a district actually manages their bond funds. You see a lot of things that, we thought that they were going to build this particular school over here, and they ended up doing it over there. We saw in Red Oak, the city, the city parks bond was voted down. So what did they do? They jacked up the tax rate and did the park anyway. There's a big issue about listening to the voters and actually hearing them. The city jacked up their tax rate. The district even agreed that, we've listened to the voters and we know that they don't want a tax increase. So what do 5 years later? They put forth a tax increase. Not only that, but they talk about the fact that they've decreased the tax rate, but they're never decreasing it enough to actually mitigate those appraisals. They know what these appraisals are. They know how much money is flying out of the taxpayer pocket, and they're still increasing that. So a tax rate decrease can still be a tax burden increase. And the taxpayers are feeling that. If you go to the CFPC documents on the Red Oak website and you look at that facility survey that Brian was talking about, yeah, over 2,000 people started answering those questions. But just like every other down ballot election we see, the further down the ballot you get, the fewer people stay involved. So by the time you get to question 13, only 1,700 people are answering the questions. And one of those questions was, did you know that Red Oak has lowered the tax rate? Most people did not, like 72% did not know that. They didn't know it because they never felt it, because they understand that. So we do have a lot of people that are really, really hurting. And when we're looking at this bond and what it actually authorizes, you've got the authorization of shall the board issue these bonds, and shall the board levy and pledge and cause to be assessed and collected annual taxes without limit as to rate or amount. So you have a projection of a tax rate increase. You know, Brian mentioned that it might be only another $60 a month. That's a projection. The actual authorization that is legally binding for the life of this bond is a tax without limit. They have the authorization to raise it as high as they need to pay this off, because they're leveraging the credit of the state, and the state is not going to let them default on this. So each proposition, A, B, C, and D, all include this language. And this has been such a problem with districts across the state that the legislature made them put on the ballot itself, this is a property tax increase. And you hear a lot from the district and the yes crowd about, well, we're just required to put that on there. That's just legalese. It's required because it's a legal reality. And when they start dismissing the legal language, you got to start wondering, what else are they dismissing?
I'm sorry, Ms. Hedke, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
So, you know, there's language on this bond, and where can people actually see the things you have in your hand, the papers that you're reading from? Where can the people actually get to that?
That's right on the Red Oak website. You have to click through to notice of election and find the bond order.
Okay.
And you can read it. It's all right there.
Is that on the ROISD or on the Red Oak City? ROISD. Okay.
The district website.
Okay.
You're not seeing them highlight it and explain it to the voters, but it's there. It's right there.
Well, you know, we have this beautiful thing called technology. So I had this up when he was here. So
sure.
Go ahead and pull that up. Where roughly?
So in the left-hand navigation bar, you'll see notice of elections off to the left.
Okay. Notice of elections. Okay.
And the bond order.
The bond order. Where is that at? Bond.
This is basically the order calling an election. Keep scrolling down. It's a 10-page document for this Red Oak ISD election. Oh. And this document is the bond. This document is the bond. No flashy pictures, no artist renderings, no happy children, just a legal contract.
And I'm scrolling through here so that you can see it is on there. So right. Regardless of, you know, because I have seen the posts, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys on was because I like to try to improve the conversations that we have on here. And I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying there's been some vitriol on there. So
oh, yes, there is.
I wanted to make sure that, you know, people got their point across clearly. And right. Sometimes when you're typing away, you're not getting it all there. So what I wanted to ask you kind of a question, you know, what, and this is me being the antagonist.
Sure,
what is wrong with improving a stadium that's old, or a middle school that's falling apart or too small? What's wrong with that?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong is that you're not using a GoFundMe to do this. This is not an investment of your own money. This is a vote to take money by force from your neighbor to get something done. And when you're talking about educating the children, you don't need a stadium to do that. If you want to pursue a stadium in sports, Feel free to do what tons of other nonprofits have done in building multi-million-dollar facilities and set up a capital building fundraiser and involve the community in a voluntary fundraiser. This is not new. Organizations across the globe raise millions of dollars for multi-million-dollar facilities. And Brian's right. The district can't do this on their own. They can't. They're not allowed to. But any third-party organization is welcome to raise money and donate it to the district for anything they want. So there's nothing wrong with the doing. The wrong is with the funding.
With the funding. Okay. And you would like to see, and there's some people, a lot of people who would like to see some private funding towards those things instead of public funding. And that's kind of what you're bringing up. And so he was bringing, like the transportation building. He was bringing some things that, is there anything in this bond that you think is, and because there's four, what is it? Four, it's broken down into four.
Four propositions.
So is there anything that you support in those?
Oh, I can support everything, but I can't support any of the funding just because of the language. Now, I can tell you what I've heard from people at the doors, because, this bond is not about Amy Headkey. It's about what the Red Oak community wants. And one of the biggest things is, well, if we need another middle school, why can't we have a middle school only bond?
Okay.
Just a middle school only. Address one thing at a time. In fact, Waxahachie had this same issue a couple of bond elections ago, where they wanted a couple of elementary schools and an ag barn and an auditorium. And the people voted it all down. So what did the school do? They went back to the drawing board. They brought back one bond issue, one prop for one elementary school, period. And it passed. So if they will be specific in these things, because you've got one sentence of, constructing, acquiring, and equipping school buildings that's supposed to cover all of that stuff on the front page. That's not specific. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. That's supposed to take $156 million plus interest. Plus interest. That's the other thing in that bond order, is the actual cost of this bond. Proposition A is actually a $229 million proposition by the time you look at the interest. And Red Oak is already $130 million in debt. That's the current debt load. We're not going to be paying that off. It's the children that are going to be paying this off. If all four of these props pass, plus the current debt, you're looking at almost $500 million of debt that the kids have to pay off. And, I don't try to bring a lot of scripture into the secular government area, but when you're talking about a legacy of debt and what you're doing to the children, and, we're told, do not covet your neighbor's money. This kind of policy is bad all around, not just from a secular, objective financial impact, but from a scriptural one as well.
Yeah, and you made some very compelling points. And as she pointed out, the legalese of the bond, what you're actually voting on, is on the website. It's on our ROISD website. Yeah. Look it up. Read these things. Don't take anybody's word, not DV LeBron or Amy or Brian. Go read what you are voting for. And then, if you can get behind that, make sure you get out there and vote. Yeah, Mike, I heard about the $1 million scoreboard. I understand that. I get it. But I wanted to bring a conversation about the reasons for and the reasons against. And I think I got that tonight. Miss Headkey, if you'd like to make a quick closing statement on it, and then I'll close out.
Sure. We are asking people to vote all four propositions down. Just vote them all down, send them back to the drawing board. Their citizen facility planning committees weren't even open to the public. They deliberately shut out the public. And that's on the website also. If you look at the CFPC planning documents and in their parameters, the public is not allowed to attend, only committee members. We need a process that is open to the public, that actually has public input and not just a district-driven input. And please vote this all down. Send them back to the drawing board. And Brian's right. This is a low turnout election. Less than 2,000 people will vote in this. Municipal elections tend to have 4 to 7% turnout of all registered voters, and there's like 20,000 something people in Red Oak. And You know, when we did the last bond, we were able to bump it up to like 13%.
Ooh, we really kicking butt there.
So yeah, early voting starts April 25th, and it would be great if we had enough people turning out to decide this election on day one.
Make sure you get out there, folks. I do this show because I want you to know what you're voting for and who you're voting for. And I try to have every candidate that's around. It's been Midlothian and Waxahachie, but I'm working my way to Red Oak. It's an intensive thing. Trust me, chasing down candidates can be quite interesting. So that said, I'm working my way there. Anyway, I do appreciate both of you coming on at, on different times and get your point across about the yes and no about the bond. Ms. Hedke, you take care, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.